figure it out. I promise I can. We are so happy to have you here this evening. And it's exciting because this is our first ShEconomy after COVID, and this is our first hybrid ShEconomy. So I think that's something to celebrate, that we're embracing technology to reach more people. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Francesca Baer. Francesca was selected as the director of the Office of Academic Equity in the College of Business and Public Administration. She has extensive administrative experience as director, assistant dean, associate dean, and interim dean of graduate studies. Dr. Baer is also a professor of finance, and that is her love and her passion. She's a professor of finance here at Cal State University, San Bernardino. She holds a PhD in finance, a graduate degree in computer science, and a master's in commercial engineering. So I strive to learn a few new things every day. And I learned new things about you, Francesca, through your bio. So that was exciting to me. I didn't know that. Her principal research interests are behavioral finance, a research area that applies psychological theories to financial models. As of now, she has published more than 50 articles. Wow. In books, monograph, and refereed journals. And in 2017, her contribution to research earned her the title Distinguished Research Fellowship. Francesca was the founding director of the Office of Student Research. She developed the OSR Summer Research Program, the Peer Lab, the Peer Consultant programs as well. She has also developed the campus-wide annual Meeting of the Minds Research Symposium to showcase students' research and creative activities to the university and community of San Bernardino. Under her leadership, the OSR awarded more than 250 grants to students and faculty. In 2018, Francesca was awarded the CSU Faculty Innovation and Leadership Award, which recognizes faculty's implementation of innovation practices to improve student success. Such a consistent support of research and students for many, many, many years. As the director of the Office of Academic Equity, Francesca has created the Trend Centers program and the Voices series, both designed to support student success. She established the annual ShEconomy to empower women and develop events for faculty called Paves the Way, and for staff members in motion to foster positive working relationships. She was the co-PI for the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship, which brought in $425,814. And I am still working on that program today, so assisting the folks that are continuing that program. The co-PI for the National Science Foundation, STEM grant, $5 million. And the co-PI for the Chancellor's Student Success Initiative grant, a paltry $649,000. She was the recipient of the CSUSB Faculty Mentor Award and received several awards for superior research. Francesca has also been recognized as Faculty Advisor of the Year, Excellence in Teaching, Outstanding Professional Achievement. She is currently the president for Beta Gamma Sigma Honor Society. She was a member of the Faculty Senate Executive Committee and was the alternate statewide academic senator. She is a prolific and experienced speaker. She's out in the community doing great work. She has made professional presentations, obviously here in the United States, but also in Thailand, China, Tunisia, Turkey, Poland, France, Greece, Mexico, and Amsterdam. And I would like to add that Francesca is a dear friend of mine, has been for many years. And it was truly, truly an honor to join her this past week, where she was presented with the inaugural CSUSB Lifetime Achievement Award. So fantastic work, a fantastic woman, doing great work to support the community, the people she knows, just an incredible individual. And I neglected to introduce myself. My name is Michelle Skilgen. You'll hear more about me later. But I do have a couple of announcements before we dive into this amazing program. So this is a wonderful gift that someone will receive. But in order to be considered for this gift, you have to fill out the sign-in sheet, which is on your table. So that's your incentive, possible going home with presents. If you need to use the facilities, you're going to head out this door, turn left, head all the way to the end of the hall. And I think that's the major announcements for tonight. And let's give Francesca a warm welcome as she comes up to introduce Dean.
Hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. And first, thank you very much, Michelle, because that was a very, very nice introduction, right? Very, very nice. So I really am honored to be here and to welcome you, because supporting women is something that is extremely important to me. This is, in fact, the reason why we have created this event, the ShEconomy, and we meet every year. The first year, it was about 20 of us. I see some people, Jolene is still here, about 20 of us. And then the event has grown. I think this year we had about 220 RSVP, which is really, you imagine the progression, right? From 20 to 200 in 5 years. So this year is the first time that we are having a hybrid event. So some of us are here, and then we have 200 people somewhere online. So I just mentioned that I'm so passionate about this event because providing support to women is something that we really need to do. We really need to do that, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also because, in fact, it helped the economy. And I will show you during my presentation the relationship between women working and the state of the economy. And we all benefit from that. So even from a selfish point of view, it's the right things to do. Yeah. So every year we meet, this is the 5th annual ShEconomy, to discuss how we can support women. So we first take a quick look at the state of the economy. Where are we and what are women contributing? And then we have a specific theme, a specific topic that we discuss. This year, I call that to be or not to be an entrepreneur or not to be an entrepreneur. So I will make a short presentation about what studies show us, the benefits of being an entrepreneur, the income entrepreneurs are making, the risk entrepreneurs are taking. So that will be part of my presentation, and then after that, we are very, very fortunate we have a group of experts. We have a group of experts that have really agreed to volunteer their time and share their experience with us. So thank you very much, ladies. We will introduce each of you properly in a minute, but thank you so much for taking the time. Because being an entrepreneur means being very, very, very busy. So they decided to just come and join us this evening, so that's wonderful. So this is basically what we are going to do tonight. I will just share the microphone in a minute with my dean. And I'd say that with a smile, because I'm very, very happy to introduce my dean. Wonderful, wonderful man. So I will share his bio with you, if I find it. Because Marina just gave it to me 3 times. and she says, if you lose it one more time, I'll throw you down the stairs. Well, I found it. So, Thomas Gomez Arias is the dean of the Jack H. Brown College of Business and Public Administration at California State University, San Bernardino. So before joining the college, Thomas was dean of the College of Business Administration at California State University, Stanislaus. Previous positions include Chief Diversity Officer at San Mary College of California, where he was also a professor of marketing and global business, chair of the Department of Marketing, director of the Masters of Science in Business Analytics, associate dean for faculty and research at the School of Economics and Business Administration, and director of the Center for the Regional Economy. He was associate professor of marketing at the University of Akureyri. He will do a better job than me. I'm not so sure. So that was in Spain, and he was also the director of the MBA program and the entrepreneurship program and management program. He also served as the chief trade officer at the Consulate General of Spain in Hong Kong. He's the founder of AI-VIT Consulting and the California-Spain Chamber of Commerce. Thomas has served on the board of the Central Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Turnlock Chamber of Commerce, Rolling F Credit Union, Stanislaus Equity Partner, and the Stanislaus Regional Transit Authority, and he is the past chair of the CSUSB Diversity and Inclusion Network Affinity Group. He has been on the editorial board of the European Journal of Innovation Management and the Emerald Emerging Markets case series. His research has been published in the European Journal of Marketing, Journal of Business and Industrial Marketing, International Journal of Bank Economy, Journal of Business and Economics, Arts and the Market, International Journals of Arts Management, Journal of Consumer Marketing, CSE, Case Research Journal, and Journal of Marketing Analytics. Our dean hold a PhD and a licenciatura. You can see language has never been my strength. It's never been my strength. You will notice that. I mean, it's always mispronounce something. So let me try one more time. Licenciatura in business science from the University of Lyon, Spain, and an MBA from Columbia Business School. So will you help me welcoming our dean that will make a little bit of remark? Thank you.
Thank you, Francisca. She asked me to welcome you, so welcome all of you. And sometimes one thing she doesn't know is that she's one of the reasons I'm here. Did you see earlier there was a video here? And there was a guy with a big mustache who was the previous dean. And the deans of the CSU, the business deans, we get together a few times a year to just talk about things, dean things and other stuff. And she was invited to the first one that I attended, and I was fascinated by the work she was doing. And at that time, I had no idea I would end up here. But I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if I could work with someone like that? It's true. And now I'm here, and I have the fortune of working with someone like that, with someone like Francisca Bear. One of the things probably she's going to talk about, and that's going to be part of the conversation today, is why do we have to have events like this? Why is it important for the Jack H. Brown to have an Office of Academic Equity? And think about the alternative. Would we have an Office of Academic Inequity? An Office of Academic Exclusion? I don't think so, right? What we have to work on is inclusion and equity and making sure that we all feel that we belong and we can all contribute our best to the society around us. And it's not only a moral issue, it's not only an ethical issue, it's also a performance issue. You know, there's plenty of research, and you know, Professor Baer and many others here are familiar with the literature. More inclusive organizations, more inclusive societies are actually more productive. They have better performance. So when we talk about why we do events that focus on women, we are actually focusing on all of us. We are making society better for all of us. I'm a guy, I want things like this. You know, it's, you know, when we support you know, half of the world, really, we are supporting the other half too. Now, I'm between you and the people you really want to listen to. So I'm going to conclude here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all to those of you who are visiting from the, I don't know, the ether somewhere, all over the world. Thank you for participating. Enjoy the session today. Thank you to our panelists. You know, you are going to be fascinated by their stories and their talent. And I'm going to get out of here and give the floor again to Professor Baer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Arias Gomez. And now I will start with a presentation of the state of the ShEconomy. Let me just start a PPT. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Okay. It took like many click, but it works. So you know that this event is put together by the Office of Academic Equity in collaboration with the marketing department and the Inland Empire Center for the Development for Women, right? So I wanted to start by giving you a quote about what is the main idea of the Office of Academic Equity and why this office was created. So I'm just reading, equity in education requires putting system in place to ensure that every student has an equal chance to succeed. That's the main idea. So we have many different programs like the Trendsetters and on, just to make sure we're putting in place system allowing students to succeed. Now I mentioned that this event was organized in collaboration with, excuse me, how many times do I have to click this stuff? Just. Oops. Okay, 10 times. I'll get it. So I'm just busy, but it's true. So, I'm sorry you don't see this very well, but all over for you on your left, you have IE Women's Business Center, and then on the other side, of course, you have the marketing department. So, what are we going to do? Well, two parts in this presentation. Part one is going to be news about ShEconomy. Part two, to be or not to be. That's the question about, should you quit your job to become an entrepreneur. So let's get started about part one, news from the ShEconomy. So just to make it clear and very simple, in fact, well, what is the economy? What do we mean when we say the economy? What do we have in mind? So you have the quote here on top. An economy is not a bunch of profit-hungry businessmen, even the witty governor of the central bank. I think the second part here is really what an economy is. So I'm going to read it. Economy is a system made up of all those institutions and organizations, offices, banks, factories, schools, hospitals, museums, everything that provide work. We know, because there's a lot of research that has been done, that there is a strong relationship between happiness and work. People want to work. Believe it or not, it's the truth. So when we talk about the economy, we need to have a way to measure this economy. What is the economy? And there is many different ways to do so. But tonight, I just want to offer the GDP, the gross domestic product. Let's just look at the gross domestic product, which is basically what we all produce, right, within the economy. So I want you to take a look at some of the information I found. I'm going to move this a little bit. This is why it's so important to support and empower women in the economy. Fact number one, and all those are well-researched facts, right? Fact number one, women contributes more than 7 trillion to the US gross domestic product, which is probably about 23, 24 trillion right now. Right? So this is a big chunk, right? About 30%. Women are the primary breadwinner in 41% of the household. Women serve as the principal shoppers in 72% of households. More women than men entrepreneurs introduce innovation, new product, new service in, of course, developed economy. And, as Dean Gomez mentioned, gender-diverse firms have better productivity, produce a better rate of return than other companies. So those are just already some, I think, important facts for all of us to know. Now, women contribution to the US economy is one thing, but women contribute all over the world. So I did some research and look for women contribution in other countries. There we go. All over the world, literally all over the world. Here's some numbers for you. Japan, Europe. If we could close the gap between male and female employment rates, this would increase the Eurozone, so all the countries that are in Europe, GDP, by 13%, and Japanese GDP by 16%. China. Chinese women overall spending has increased 81% over the last 5 years. In fact, the articles I was reading state that in China, people say those who win over women's hearts win it all. And that is a slogan that just swept the continent. South Africa, 71% of women are responsible for grocery shopping. 60% are the primary purchaser, within South African household. Other research. Uganda, Namibia, Nigeria. Women are 3 times more likely to be entrepreneurs than men. I think I made my case, right? In the US and all over the world. And I want to add something that is, I think, so important for all of us because it's our future. Here we go. Women are more likely than men to invest a large portion of their household income in their children's education. Isn't that our future? Huh? Education. So I think those studies, and then what I quote here is just academic studies. So those studies are wonderfully well made, you know. They're just published in peer-reviewed journal, right? Recognized journal by recognized academic, meaning that they have a very large sample, a very good methodology, and on and on. So all those studies really reach the same conclusion. If we could support women, the economy will grow. And women already are taking place, right, in the economy, but we need more support. So that's where we are, or this is where we were just before COVID. Because of course, when COVID started, well, we had an economic lockdown, right? That was the case. Now, unfortunately, when you look at women and women working, you will see that there is a larger proportion of women that are nurses than men, a larger proportion of women that works in school, larger proportion of women that are in restaurants, serve food, and on and on. So you have a large proportion of women that in fact are in contact with other people. Well, lockdown, no contact. So that was really extremely important for us to realize that and to understand the impact that COVID had. Second, family-friendly policies. Well, it is true that if you compare the US with UK or other countries, we are not as family-friendly, right? There is less pay leave, less support for women that are pregnant than in other countries. Yeah. And the third one is the occupation, which I just mentioned, right? The nurse, doctors, and so on and so on. So COVID was really devastating for women. And for a little while, we were really wondering what was going to happen. But I'm always looking for the good news. And in fact, I think we have a good news here too. First, the bad news. Sorry. First, this is really a bad news, sorry. So, yeah, I needed to mention that. And I hope that you can see, look at the color of the slide, you know, because there is also a thing that we don't talk about enough. But we still need to recognize that. You know, we call that the shadow pandemic. During COVID, we had noticed a huge increase in the number of calls for domestic violence. During COVID, huge increase in alcohol and substance use. Increase in mental health issues. And increase in the number of stillbirths. So we call that the shadow pandemic, because when we study the economy, we look at employment, GDP, you know, this type of thing. But all those variables have a huge impact. But again, as I mentioned, I don't want the presentation to be like overly negative, so I wanted to still try to just bring back positive and see what can we do. First, let me conclude. We agree. It's a very short period of, during the short period of time I had here, I hope that I give you some reason to think that gender equality is good for the economy. To be honest with you, we're not focusing on emerging country, but there is plenty of literature in emerging country and even in United States, in fact, unfortunately, right? That gender equality will prevent violence against women and girls. So our communities will be safer and healthier. And it is a human right. If you look at the United Nations publication of 1945, it's already there, right? Gender equality. 1945 is a long time ago. So we want that. We want that. Now that we look very quickly at the ShEconomy, let's just try to address the question, which, as I said, we have a panel of experts that will address as well. To be or not to be? Should I be an entrepreneur, or should I keep my job? Well, I want to add first that small business and entrepreneur are really the engine of the economy. That's why I put those gold bars there. Really the engine of the economy. In the United States, we have 31.7 million small businesses. Can you imagine? That's huge. Okay? And in the United States, according to SBA on one side and then BEA on the other side, small businesses account for around 50% of the US economy. Okay? So tremendous contribution. So what are those people that decide to do or to just create a business? Sometimes, and the definition is a little bit twisted here, but that's okay for us today. Well, we are going to call those people entrepreneur. Okay? Because entrepreneur, in effect, if you're very precise, is not that easy to define, but entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship, that's what those individuals have decided. They have decided that they will create a business. So entrepreneurship is the process of setting up a business. And taking that business, taking the idea, right? Or the idea, I should say, from the idea to the realization. Okay? Now, being an entrepreneur implies that you're ready to take some risk. Normally, at least that's what we say in finance, my chair is here, you will agree, high risk, high return. That's what we say all the time in finance, high risk, high return, low price. Yeah? Of course, this is very risky, I'm not going to pay too much, we always say that. So being an entrepreneur, if it's very risky, should provide a lot of reward. And that's probably true. So I did some research here for you and wanted to share with you the reward that I could find. But before making the list of the reward, I was thinking, well, you cannot succeed alone. That's one of the reasons why we are here. Anyway, we're not succeeding alone. Yeah? So on this slide here, I wanted to quickly show you that we need an environment that is conducive to success. Yeah? And some personal characteristic also. So we do measure that, people that conduct research are always dreaming about everything, right? So this is measured. So we have some index that allow us to determine if an economy is friendly, business friendly, right? Or if it's not. Those indexes are like the GEI, right? This is the Global Entrepreneurship Index, and then the GEM. This is the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. And they do a fabulous job. Every single year, they rank every country. And those indexes are multidimensional. They look at infrastructure, political stability, job skill, and on and on. Yeah? And I'm happy to say that the United States is the most entrepreneurial country in the world. But the most entrepreneurial country does not necessarily mean the best, right? The most entrepreneurial countries means that this is in the US that you will find the largest number of entrepreneurs, or the largest percentage of entrepreneurs. Yeah? But, in fact, Japan is voted #1, the best country to do business. United States is 6 or 7 on the list, which is not bad. So generally speaking, and I always emphasize that because we are here, so sometimes we don't really see. Generally speaking, conducting business in the United States is not as complicated that it could be in some other countries. So the environment seems to be quite positive. Now, not only the environment, but also who you are. And I did again some reading, and I create like a little table that allowed to identify the characteristic of what successful entrepreneurs, right, have. So they recognize opportunities. They have a strong desire to achieve, high energy. They want to control their destiny. Of course, they want to make money. They are really ready to take risk. They're determined. They have self-confidence, and they're enthusiastic. So those are the characteristics that I found successful entrepreneurs share. So who are those people? Entrepreneurs are not as young as we think. The average age is between 44 and 50. The most common ethnicity is male and white male. 62% of the entrepreneurs don't have any staff. So they basically do everything themselves. Marketing, finance, you name it, everything. Yeah? 31% have an associate degree. 30% finish high school, and 17% have a bachelor's degree. So this is, those people that we have now. As you can see, those studies are 2020, 2021, so very recent characteristic. Now, if you look, let's go, thank you. If you look at gender, we have, this is better, by the way, it's getting better and better. We have 41.5% that are women, and of course 58.5% that are men. Okay? Now, as I said, it's getting better and better. And it's true because the Guidance Financial publication of 2020 is showing us that there is a 4% year-on-year increase, right, among the ladies that are just female business entrepreneurs. So the number of ladies that decide to just become entrepreneur is increasing every year, right, by 4% so far. Now, why is it that we have this increase in the number of ladies that want to become entrepreneur? So why is it that, and the expert will discuss that as well, but this is what studies shows. They say, well, women are leaving their job because they want flexibility. They want to be able to charge what they're worth. They want control over their future. They want to advance more quickly, or they want to follow their passion. So those are the main characteristics. And as I mentioned earlier, we were really concerned with the pandemic, but it's not true that the pandemic was only negative, because a lot of people, in fact, decide to become entrepreneurs during the pandemic. And I put a little pyramid there for you. In fact, again, a survey that was done in September 2021 has people, hey, why did you become an entrepreneur? They say, 60% of people said, COVID allowed me to educate myself to be able to start a business. 59% were thinking, this pandemic showed me how vulnerable I am when I'm working for somebody else. 47% realize that there is a wealth of qualified employees. There is so many jobs right now. And then 43%, we can skip that 43%, is so small, so let me just move on. But anyway, my point is, COVID was not, of course it was terrible, but not as devastating on women and small business that we had forecast. But again, what are the rewards that those people that have decided to become entrepreneurs are reaping? And remember, there is risk and reward, right? So please take a look at this ugly slide. A scale. Seriously? No. That is my enemy, right? I always say that. I always lie about my weight and my age. So that's really true. So we don't need this ugly scale here. You know, we want kind of the classic scale, classic scale that we see in book that makes me feel good. Yeah, let's just look at risk and reward, not this ugly scale. This is terrible. So reward, flexibility. Although honestly, entrepreneurs work very, very hard, but flexible schedule. Autonomy. Having a career that aligns with who you are, your value. You have to constantly grow. You have to become a leader, develop yourself. Meeting like-minded people, unexpected and thrilling experiences. And you can choose who you want to work with. So those are the most often mentioned reward of ladies, and in fact, men is basically the same thing in this case. Most of those are shared by both men and women. They say, that's why we wanted to become an entrepreneur, and that's rewarding for us, to have flexibility, and on and on. Now, to be a successful entrepreneur, they also recognize that there is a very important quality to have, which is self-confidence. Are women as self-confident than men? Or maybe not? So I'm sure you think some thinking, right? You're thinking something. So again, I look at a study, and so on the left you have man and then a woman. And in study we very often, in marketing people do that a lot, in fact. We give the respondent a scale that we call like a Likert scale. And people can choose, you agree, strongly agree, neutral. You understand what I mean? Disagree, and on, okay? So that's a scale. So men, when we ask them questions, demonstrate that they're very self-confident. In fact, 49% of men seems to be very confident when we ask them questions that determine how confident they are. They strongly agree. They agree. Yeah? Versus women, it's a little bit less. 34% of women that have the same question, right, will be as assertive, will be as confident than men. So maybe we have a little bit of a disadvantage here. Right? Self-confidence. And people will tell you there is so many studies that show that women do not negotiate as well as men. It's true. It is very true. Women do not negotiate as strongly as men do. Yeah? So maybe also relate to self-confidence. If you look at finance, which is my field, women, in effect, ask for less money than men when they ask for a bank loan. So it could be good, but it could also be bad. I mean, you need to ask, right, what you need to grow. Because the risk of being a small business owner, the risk of being an entrepreneur are huge. According to Dwayne's article that is reproduced in Investopedia, data show that about 20% of new business failed during the first 2 years. That's a lot, right? 20%. Okay? 45% during the first 5 years. 65% during the first 10 years. Can you imagine the risk? So deciding to become an entrepreneur, very risky. It is very, very risky. And people that are willing to do that needs to realize that and understand the risk. Now, this table might not be a graph as clear as I would like it to be, but I want you to realize that the statistics can always be decomposed. We can always disaggregate, right? So the numbers I just show you, like 20% fail about 5 years, that's for all businesses. But it's not the same for men or for women. It's not the same for African American, Black or Asian, white, and on and on. There is always another variable there that we always need to identify as well. So this graph on the left, for me, for you, well, depending if you're looking here or here, but so you can see the first diagram, the first little bar show the title. I read the title for you: Predicted New Business 12-month Failure Rate. So if you are a white man, the probability that you will fail during the first year is 47%. If you are an Hispanic man, probability is quite higher, 50 plus. If you're a Black man, now we are in the 60%. And then you can continue, and it's basically the same thing for women. Of course, the percentages are different, but as you can see, 40% or 45% of white women that think they will fail is already a huge number. Let alone more than 50 if you're Hispanic, and let alone more than 60 if you're Black. That's why we talk about equity. That's why we talk about support. I also look at what are the main reasons why those businesses are failing? Well, most often is finance. A second reason is labor, taxes, you can imagine, competition, mainly competition with large business, and then lack of support. There is many reasons, right? This time I have to share with you is short, so I just select the most relevant reason, or those that are cited the most in the literature. Yeah? So, finance. First, the disclaimer. Women on average have lower FICO score, your credit score. Women on average are involved with businesses that have a lower profit margin. And profit margin means lower sales, right? Lower revenue. So think about that. When you go to a bank to borrow money, if your FICO score is not as high as the next person, if your business does not generate income, it's going to be harder to negotiate a loan, right? So that's why we need to study those things. So we need to know what can we do so women can access capital the same way as men. Well, help women to just have a higher FICO score. That can be done. Yeah? Also, make sure that women look at some industry that provide a higher profit margin. I don't know if you can see the chart on the right, but that chart shows how many men and how many women you will have in different industry. See what I mean? That's what it shows. I don't know if you can see very well, but you will not be surprised to know that there will be way more women in industry related to beauty, right, than men. And the profit margin is not as good as people think. So we need to help support women in getting a better FICO score, better credit. We also need to make sure that women understand, hey, I don't have to be in the beauty industry, or I don't have to be in retail, or I don't have to be in food. I can be a CPA. Okay? And that comes with information and education. So finance, well, again, we're making progress. Yeah. We used to have a huge gap between what men can obtain when they go visit a financial institution and what women could obtain. Yeah. So, but nowadays, the gender gap in funding, right, and funding and cost is basically closing. On average, the small business person receives a loan of about $42,000. That's about the average. Yeah. And the percent, the cost of the loan, right, the interest rate is very close now. So we have made tremendous progress here. Right. However, women still have less access to funding, and they report lower financial. Men entrepreneurs are about 20% more likely to receive a loan. Yeah. So let's make sure we understand the first and the second bullet, right? If we compare women and men that obtain a loan, the size of the loan is about the same, is $42,000. The cost of the loan, the interest rate is about the same, let's say 10%. You understand what I mean? Because that used to be also a disparity. It used to be that men could borrow $100,000 and women only $10,000. And men could borrow $100,000 and pay 2%, and women borrow and get $10,000 and pay 25%. Exaggerate, but you understand my point was like, right? So here we have closed that gap. However, we still have some difficulties because women still have less access to capital than men. Now, we also know that when you borrow money, clearly you're going to have to pay, right, return the money plus certain interest. So this money that you borrow must be used for what we call in finance productive opportunities, something that will give you a high rate of return. So we are always curious to know, what are women doing, right, with the capital they borrow? Again, this average, right? I mean, because it could be different for any of us here. So women and men use funding for different purposes. Women are more likely to use financing to refinance their debt or to consolidate, okay? And a little bit of expansion. Men, in fact, they use finance basically for expansion because they're always looking to purchase equipment. Yeah. Repaying the debt and consolidate will never be among all the studies I look as the first thing. Will be, no, I want to grow. I'm going to buy 5 more trucks. Yeah. The second variable I mentioned was support. Remember? At finance, at support. Again, that study show how many people, that study has so many questions, and one of the questions, how many people were involved in the creation of this business? And then we compare. The blue show that the individual that has started the business was supported by one person. The orange supported by 2, and then continue gray and on, right? Take a look. Take a look. Men are, on average, more supported than women are. You look at the orange, look at the gray, look at yellow, green, right? All this means that you have more support than the blue. The blue is only 1%. Yeah? So 82, or let's say 80% of women were just supported by one person, right? Versus it's only 70% of men that were supported by one person. So men were on average supported by more individuals than women. And support is important. especially when you create something brand new. Yeah. Risk, return, and failure. I did a lot of reading to try to see how many times do people fail before they succeed. Because you need to be determined to be a small business person. How many times? And honestly, if you look at people that are very, very successful, you will see that they had failed many, many times. A couple of examples. Vera Wang, she was skating, didn't make the Olympic. She became editor of Vogue, didn't work. And then finally, when she turned 40, well, she started designing gowns. And now the rest is history, huh? She's a billionaire. No, she's not the only one. Oprah, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. If you read the story of, Steve Jobs, raised, well, he was adopted, a child from a single lady that was trying to pursue a graduate degree, gave him up for adoption, get cancer when he was a young man. Honestly, it's true. You can read the book, collecting can, sleeping on his friend's sofa, right? And continue and persevere. Okay? Carnegie, Walt Disney. I was reading that Walt Disney, he created this little Mickey Mouse, the mouse things, right? He tried to have financing to launch the mouse. And God knows this mouse is known all over the place. He has requested loan from banks more than 300 times, and it was no. Yeah. So persevere. And support. Okay. So basically, this is really such an important characteristic. So again, then I ask myself, well, we already know that women have a little bit less support than men, right? I show you one person versus 3, 4, 5, okay? Then I also look at a survey that show how men and women that were asked to answer the question, is this the first time you have launched a business? Is it the first time? More than 90%, 94% of women said, yes, the first time. And you have about 82% of men that clearly went through the motion more than once. So we have to be self-confident, determined, and persevere. It's hard. It's easy to say here from my little podium, huh? It is hard. So we have to provide the support to women they need in order to allow them to persevere. And I will claim even more to minority women, the brown and black, since they're failing more, right? And they have less support, they get less capital. Now, capital, money. Well, Oprah, Bill Gates, those are billionaires. There's no doubt about that. So I was curious to know what was, in addition to the reward I show you, right? Remember flexibility, right? Choosing somebody you want to work with, right? That's part of the reward of being an entrepreneur. But how much money do they make? So I went a little bit all over the place and I look at Glassdoor. On average in the United States, entrepreneur makes between $42,000 and $130,000 per year. Salary.com claimed that entrepreneurs make between 54 and 81. Now, the ZipRecruiter are really very low, 28, right, and 62. So, of course, this is an individual question, right? Some of us want to be rich. Some of us want to be comfortable. It's just we all have our individual preferences. But we still have to go with our eyes and decide with our eyes open and have the information we need. Yeah? So that's the average, right? Remember, it's always a distribution. Yeah? So this means some entrepreneurs are making 500,000 and some are making 10,000. But regardless of how much you make, there is still a gender gap. Studies show that if a man makes 100,000, the woman will make 80. Yeah? That's brand new studies. The last couple of slides. If you want to start a business and you're curious to know what studies show you should do, well, for 2022, I read that most profitable business will be e-commerce, drop shipping, print on demand, coffee subscription. I didn't even know that existed. I was reading, what is coffee subscription? So that happened during the pandemic. People couldn't go and pick up the Starbucks coffee or whatever. So what happened, can you go back again? So what happened is some people thought about that. Fine, send, pay me money and I'm going to bring you coffee. I didn't even think about that. It's fascinating. Landscaping, that's also because of COVID. A lot of people start landscaping, gardening. I even try. Yeah? So furniture, web design, online advertising, social media, and cleaning. So I want to leave you with 2 quotes. Yes, there is a lot of risk. Yes, it's complicated. But then studies show that, in fact, entrepreneurs are healthier on average than others. Not only healthier, but happier. It turns out entrepreneurs, blah, 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 have a significantly lower incidence of physical and mental illness. They visit hospital less. They report higher level of life satisfaction. So then I was like, so better health. Now I wanted to know, well, better health, are you also happier? So I continued digging and I found out, yeah, on average, studies show that entrepreneurs are healthier. So this is good. So this is now the time of the expert to just share their expertise. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. I'm back. So sorry, I need to add something here. So we're moving to the second part. So this is going to be the expert time. But this second part is going to be managed by my friend and colleague, Michelle Skiljon, and by Kim Shelton. So Michelle Skiljon joined California State University Advancement Team and Senior Director of Philanthropy, Corporate and Foundation Relations in January 2022. She came to this role after successfully launching the Inland Empire and Coachella Valley Women Business Center for the Inland Empire, Center for Entrepreneurship. While directing the 2 projects, Michelle raised over $10 million in federal and match funding and led the WBCs to train 85,000 workshop participants. Under her leadership, the Women Business Center they did counseling for about 5,700 business owners, and this counseling, those training, those workshops has been shown to just, in fact, impact the economy. $28 million increase. Yeah. So Michelle also served as adjunct professor of entrepreneurship here at CSUSB between 2007 and 2021. She was recognized by the National Association of Women Business Owners Inland Empire chapter as the 2014 Corporate Entrepreneur, and in 2007, she was recognized as a community bridge builder. She's also been recognized by the U.S. Small Business Administration, District Number 9, as Women Business Center Director of the Year. In 2019, she was selected, in fact, she was inducted into CSUSB Sigma Nu Tau Entrepreneurship, that's an honor society. She serves on boards, collaboratives, and committee, including being a founding member and former chair of the Micro Enterprise Collaborative of the Inland Southern California, and she was a member of NAWBO Scholarship Committee. Michelle has a bachelor's degree in information management and an MBA in entrepreneurship from CSUSB. So Michelle is going to lead the second part here. He's going to introduce the entrepreneur, and then we will go to the Q&A. So I want to introduce also Kim Shelton, because Kim is going to do Q&A with us. Yeah. So Kim is the current project director of the Inland Empire Women Business Center and the former director of the Coachella Valley Women Business Center. Kim is passionate about women's empowerment through entrepreneurship and considers herself a community leader and entrepreneur advocate. Kim has corporate experience in marketing and branding. She works for Heinz, Nabisco, Kraft, and Quaker. She also has been a small business owner for the past 15 years. She volunteers her time at nonprofit organizations that align her personal mission to advance women and the underserved. She's a member of Alpha Kappa, Alpha Sorority, and a board member for the Association of Women Business Center. Kim loves spending time with her 2 college-age children who are both majoring in business administration with an emphasis in finance and marketing. Thank you.
I'm going to have the panelists join us up here. It's always so fun to listen and learn from amazing women in the community. I have to remember to stay by the mic so that everybody can hear both in the room and online. And I can introduce them, but they can introduce themselves so much better because they know their story. So I'm just going to ask each person to introduce themselves, and then we're going to ask each person a couple of different questions. We're going to mix it up. So I'm going to make sure that Francesca is close. So we have some questions. We're going to get some audience questions too. But we're going to start with self-introductions. And I'm going to ask Rachel, would you please introduce yourself? And probably have to turn the microphone on first.
There we go. Now it's on. So I'm the first one. Let's see. So I have an e-commerce store. They were talking about that. But Money Hacky Mama is my blog. When I was 18, I wanted to go into fashion like a lot of young women. And it was really expensive to go to FITM. And I actually got a full ride scholarship to come to Cal State San Bernardino. So free is for me. So I decided to come here and I studied entrepreneurship because I figured I could figure out the fashion part later. I'll figure out the business side. And then to make a long story short, I met Michelle. I worked at the Women's Business Center. I found out about business counseling, consulting, and things like that. And I just fell in love with business and I didn't care about fashion anymore. And then I started as a non-paid intern at the Women's Business Center, worked my way up there. I worked for a professor, Steve Abbott, if anybody knows him, for his startup. And then I went and worked in finance for a financial advisor. And then I worked at Claremont Graduate University in alumni engagement. So that's probably been about 15 years of my history. And then in 2019, I started my blog and I started an Etsy store that was just kind of a fun side project. And I'd always done side hustles and things like that with the goal of using my entrepreneurship degree and actually starting a business that could sustain my lifestyle, but it's hard. So it took me a while, but then during the pandemic, I had some maternity leave when I had my daughter, my second child, and I had an Etsy store, and it started to blow up. And I remember 1 month, I had it for about over a year, and I started to sell a COVID form, so that was something that was trending, and I went from making like $50 a month with my Etsy store to like $900, and then the following month it was like $5,000, and then by the end of the year it was like $15,000 a month. So that was really cool, and it was passive, so it was digital products. I was selling them online. I could make them once, and then they would just sell automatically when I was sleeping or when I was working still, because I was still working full time or taking care of my kids or doing those kinds of things. So then I had a talk with my husband, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I have to quit my job and do this full time." And he was like, "Whoa, let's calm down a little bit. This could be seasonal. We're risk adverse." He was like, "This could be seasonality," and so I was like, "All right." He was like, "Give it a year." I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll give it a year." And then I made it about 11 months, but it was consistent. The sales were consistent. It wasn't just a fluke. And then in June of 2021, I quit my job to be an entrepreneur full time, and here I am.
All right, and our next person did this in reverse. So let's hear from Justina.
Justina Lowen. My story is a little bit different. I did so many different things, but currently I am working for the Department of Child Support Services. I am the Chief Fiscal Officer there. Before that, I worked for the Auditor Controller's Office, County of Riverside employees. But during the time when I was working for the county government, I had an opportunity to open my own business with my husband's help. We had a Chinese restaurant for about 5 years. And then I was a real estate agent at one time. So I did everything pretty much, but ultimately I went back to government. And so that was my calling, the government. But I've done, entrepreneurship, and it was something that I wanted to do, and I had an opportunity to do that, and I took a risk. But I'm with the government agency now, so I just want to share that story, that you can go around, flop around, go back and forth. You want to try, take a risk, do it, and then if you don't like it, go back to what you like to do, and have that stability that you enjoy, So that's my story. So, yeah, thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Margot.
There we go. Margot Murnick with Murnick Law. I'm a sole practitioner, business law, transactional only, no litigation. And that's been for about, 14 of the 17 years since I passed the bar. So I started out working, first of all, let me just say that was not my first career choice. I started out working for the Getty for 6 years, and I was in arts and entertainment, working with the chief curator and the director of the museum there, and thought when I went to law school that I would do arts and entertainment law. So working through that and with the museum at the same time that I was finishing school, I then started working with the City of Thousand Oaks in land use and environmental law, and got really interested in that and spent my first years out of law school in that area. But then working at night, while I was at the firm, I was helping my husband, supporting his entrepreneurship, and writing contracts and doing all kinds of things that were more business law related. And did that until probably almost into my 30s before we decided to have a child, which made me pull back on firm life and work with him more full-time. We did that together for 6 years until we decided that our relationship was more important as a marriage than it was as business partners. He encouraged me, instead of going back to firm life, to become an entrepreneur, as he was. And I balked at that because I like the idea of sort of going to work, doing what I have to do, and when I go home, I forget about, you know, the owner's problems and work on my own personal goals. But then over time, I found there's some flexibility in that and started to grow my law practice as a business law attorney and left the land use pretty much alone. So what I do now, though, is, for instance, I have a client that I've worked with for about 8 years. It was a creative on one end with the partner, and the finance guy, the back-end guy, was the other partner, and they worked together to establish a production facility around artwork. We grew them over multiple states in the country, and art galleries and other creative opportunities. And at one point, though, one of the partners decided to, we realized that he had put all of his assets in the name of a girlfriend, unbeknownst to us. So the girlfriend had a relationship with another partner. The next thing we know, we're all in business with the girlfriend. But because the operating agreements, the buy-sell agreements, all of the agreements that support the businesses across the country were solid, we were able to hold out until, you know, we got rid of the girlfriend and we moved on. So sometimes, you know, it's the other way around. These days, I'm having a lot more female clients, and I'm finding that important. But that's what I do, is I help business marriages grow. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, if you're going to have a partnership, do everything correctly. That's a perfect example. All right. And Erica, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, can you hear me okay? So my name is Erica Santillan. I'm the owner of Inland Gardens and Tropics. I am actually a small women-owned business. I am certified in the state of California to do business with the government. I actually specialize in landscaping design. I also do a lot of consulting with a lot of cities and municipalities to help them conserve water. I also do a lot of work in conjunction with a lot of the landscaping companies in the industry, particularly in Southern California. My background is, it's a little different. So I did everything in my life backwards. So I got married when I was 19. I was going to school, and the plan was that I was going to go into forensics. Well, that didn't pan out. What happened was we wanted to buy our first home, and we couldn't qualify. So I quit school. And I got hired at a general contractor's office as a receptionist. What happened was that that job got me into other aspects of construction. So the owner says, you know what, I want to help you. Shortly into my work and buying the house and having a happy life, I got a divorce. By then, I had 4 kids. I had 4 kids, and I was a single parent. So what happened was that he paid for my school. So I went back to school. I went to Cal Poly Pomona, and I did the horticulture and the project management classes. I finished school there. So it was great. Life was good. I was a single mom, but I was hardly ever home for my kids. I do have to say I got a lot of experience doing that. I learned project management. I was a project engineer. I was a purchasing manager for the largest company in the whole United States. So I was managing Southern California with a team of 6 people, but I was never home. It was very difficult to be a parent and have a full-time job. So what happened was, being in that sector of construction, the challenge was that I was constantly trying to prove that I can hold my job and that I can do just as much of a work as everybody else and all of these men in that field. So I was constantly trying to work extra hard. What happened was, one day, I get a call, and this is the finance manager for the whole company nationwide, and he says, Erica, you want to know something? You can't say anything, but you have saved the company more money than anybody nationwide. Well, I thought, okay, well, this is great. So I'm going to get a bonus, things are going to be good, and, life is good. Well, guess what happened? All of that money and all those bonuses got dispersed everywhere else, and I got a very tiny little piece of that. So I was very discouraged. But what I did do is that I learned a lot from all the pieces and aspects of construction. So what I did was one day, there was a project we were working on, and we needed minorities. We needed small businesses. And guess what? We hardly had any. Everybody in that field was always just the usuals. I couldn't get anybody certified because small businesses, we weren't, back in the day, I'm talking maybe 15, 17 years ago, we were not educated as much as we are now about minorities, about being inclusive, right? So what happened was that I was begging small businesses to join, and I would help them do their paperwork, and it wasn't very easy, to tell you the truth. They were for some reason, small businesses sometimes were very scared to kind of take that extra plunge and go that extra mile. So anyway, long story short, I was very exhausted, I was tired, and so I went home and I said, you know what? One day, I'm going to be that minority. So I went home and I certified myself. I started my business. I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do it, what I was going to do, but I knew that with all of that knowledge and everything that I had learned, I can do something. If I was making money for somebody else, I can do it for myself. So that's what I did. I certified myself in 2008, I think it was 2008, when the economy tanked. Everybody lost their job, including myself. So here I am, a single parent again with no job. But I was very fortunate. All those years of all of those relationships I had built got me those connections. So what happened was when everybody else was shorthanded because there was not enough people to do the work, I was consulting for them. So that kind of put me in a different sector. So now, again, those relationships were worth something. A couple of years ago, as you know, during COVID, the SoFi Stadium got built. I worked for that landscape developer. I was their purchasing manager, so I had those relationships. They called me and they said, guess what? We need a minority business, particularly a woman. Guess what? There was hardly anybody who was qualified. I was one of them, and I got the contract. So I was actually able to work in conjunction with the landscape architects and with the company to do all the procurement of every single piece of landscape material at the stadium. So what I did was, and what I do now currently is whenever I land those jobs, I love to be so inclusive as far as bringing on other small businesses. So I look for small businesses that are qualified just so that we can bring them on board, get them hired, or at least supply materials because, you don't always have to get that big piece of the pie, right? There's enough for everybody. So that's what our business focuses on. That and also doing some commercial, residential, landscape design and maintenance. So basically, that is my story.
So I had a fantastic boss many years ago, his name Al Lewis, and he had a statement that I heard one time, and I told him, I said, I'm stealing that. And that is network or not work. And that is exactly what each of you do, and that is your nugget for today, one of your many nuggets for today, network or not work. So in essence of time, I'm going to ask a question per panelist, and I'll ask a question, and then we want to open it up to an audience question. So I'm going to start with Rachel, and the first question is, what lesson about entrepreneurship did you learn the hard way?
Okay, so when I studied entrepreneurship here, they drilled in your mind all the time that you have to do market research. You have to do market research, and I didn't do market research. So I would always just follow my passion and do the things that I thought were cool, and they didn't really make money. And I wasn't that great of a marketer. And then I had the epiphany, even though it had been drilled into my mind multiple times, but I had to learn it the hard way or else I wasn't going to learn it, that you have to do market research before you start a business, ideally. And so I got my claim to fame, I think, and one of the key strategies that I use in my business has to do around search engine optimization, but really it's just getting the data about what people are searching for at its simplest. And so like for a lesson for everybody, like Uber Suggest is a free tool that you can use. There's a paid version, but if you go on there, or there's trends.google.com or Pinterest, I think it's trends.pinterest.com, you can go in there and just type keywords in, and it will let you know what the volume is, how many people are searching for it. So if you have a really interesting business idea, you can go and type what you think your target customer would type when they were searching for that thing that you're going to make. And if there's no search volume, that's probably a bad sign. And if there's a lot of search volume, that's probably a really good sign. And so that was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. So please take that, and especially the data that I just gave you, like do that thing before you start a business. And have fun with the data. People, you can go in and explore, and maybe you called it something different, and if you just change the keywords a little bit, that's where the search volume is. So you have to think like your customer, not think like the business owner, because you know more than your customers know. So that's my lesson.
Excellent. So who's going to reach in their pocket and give you money for what you do? You have to know who that is, right? And what the trends are. Excellent. Okay. Do we have an audience question for Rachel? Or an online question for Rachel? I'll let you think about it, and we'll move on to the next one. And this question is for, so keep thinking. This question is for Justina. What advice would you give to students, folks in the audience, to be where you are? It was on.
Sorry, before I give any advice, I just want to give you a little bit background about myself. I am here from Laos. I came here to the United States from Laos due to the political, refugee. I came here from there since I was 79. I was 8 years old. So I had to struggle. I came with my single mother, talking about single woman, right? My mom brought all of us here. She brought 4 of her children, her mom, her dad, her uncle, her aunt. So Dr. Beer's talking about, strong woman. She was a very strong woman. So I think that fits this. She created who I am. To be who you are, you need to know what your foundation is, right? So to me, family is my foundation. That's why I told that story, to have a good foundation. And my advice is to find your foundation, your family, your church group, this group, right? Any kind of group that you belong to, that's very important to have that foundation, to build who you are, right? For me, it was my family to have foundation. My mom always encouraged me and instilled in me that education is very important. So that's why you're all here, right? Education, this is Cal State, San Bernardino, we're all here for the same reason, right? To learn, to grow, to learn from each other, to have that basic understanding that education will not be taken away from us. It's one of the important things that you do for yourself. So that's my advice, is to find a foundation and just to find something you love to do. I love my job. I loved it when I was doing entrepreneurship. I love being a business owner of a Chinese restaurant. I love being a real estate agent. I love what I do because I did it because it's for me, not because of somebody else, right? So that's what you need to do, to make sure you love what you do. Like all these women up here, they love what they do, every single one of them. And that's what I wanna, that's my only advice for anybody who's watching, who is listening, who's here. Love what you do. Doesn't matter who you are. Have that passion to do it and continue doing it. Like Dr. Beer said, everybody's gonna need somebody to help us along the way. So if you need somebody, reach out and find that mentor, find somebody, find a program, find this group, are here to help each other, especially us women, right? We need that extra push. And I'm so glad to be here, to be in this panel, because I want to tell you my story. Coming here, it was difficult for another country, but having the support system, it's all what is so important to just help us, to build us, you know, to be in a group like this. So we are in a big, you know, family pretty much. This is like a big pot of family, right? We're all from the same cloth pretty much. We want to help each other. And if anybody are out there and want to learn about government, let me know. I've been working for the government since '94, and now I'm still doing it. And I've done, you know, small business. So I'll tell you the difference, you know, what's a positive and negative. But thank you for being here. Thank you for having me here, Dr. Beers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up to see if anybody has a question for Rachel or Justina. Okay.
There is one question for Rachel on our Zoom chat. It's by Michelle Munoz. What advice would you give for someone that is using Shopify for their small businesses?
That's a great question. So I don't have a Shopify store, but I still think that, so the problem with Shopify, the challenge, which is also an opportunity, is that it's not driving traffic. You are the only person that you're responsible for bringing traffic. So Etsy, for example, Etsy is a company and they are doing marketing and bringing traffic to you. Shopify, on the other hand, you have to have your own website and you have to bring traffic in. And so that's the name of the game. I would recommend that you try to bring as much traffic as you can as possible. And then you can look at social media. You can do, like, TikTok is blowing up right now. You could do Instagram Reels, so video, YouTube, highlight your products, whatever you're selling, try to solve problems for people. And then Pinterest is interesting as well, Pinterest and SEO. So you have to find a way to digitally market yourself. Pick one that you think will work well based on who your target market is. So, you know, women are on Pinterest. Depending on what your product is, if you're selling to men of a certain age, then you need to go to a different platform like Reddit, for example. There's a lot of men on there. You can find different communities. So figure out who your target market is, figure out the best way to market to them, and then I would say have a growth mindset and just dig in deep into that platform and figure it out. Just think of it like a game. It will take time, it will probably be hard, but eventually you'll hit the curve if you stay consistent and you stick with it, and you'll be able to bring a ton of traffic into your Shopify store and make sales.
All right, we're going to move to Margot. Margot, did you start as an employee? I think you might have already answered that, but how did you decide when to make the switch from employee to founder, and was the timing tumultuous?
So, yes. So I did say I started as an employee working for the Getty, and that law is my second career. So the timing, deciding that, I think one thing is deciding graduate school was, you know, figuring out what not only my interests and my passions are, like we're talking about up here, but also where my skills lie, how much time it's going to take, how much money you're going to have to spend, whether or not that job is going to make that money back for you. Obviously, those are a lot of the things that everybody's thinking about now. So that all those thoughts went into the timing of it. Traditionally, you know, my husband's career got started and supported. We're talking about support first, and I say traditionally because it often happens that the wife is supporting the husband's entrepreneurial ventures first. So we started out that way, but we planned on the timing together, making it fair. I was all about, you know, always, this is a partnership. Those husband and wife titles don't always fit for me. It's about what each person can do and contribute to the relationship, no matter husband, wife, you know, or other in the relationship. So that timing, we decided based on how much time literally doing research on the market for his business and who his customers were, how long and how much money it would take to find those customers. And then could we do that while I was finishing law school? And then in enough time for me to start to work on finding out who is my client, how do I achieve them? And so the timing got tumultuous when you go back and forth about the fairness of when to start for who. But I think when you start really being honest about those conversations and having the confidence that we talked about earlier to stand up for yourself and what your interests are and your goals, then that can work out.
Right. And like any partnership, there has to be give and take. All right. Is there a question for Margot?
There is a question online. Selena wanted to know, and I think it's a really great question for any one of the panelists. Do you have any tips on combating the stereotype of being a strong woman when negotiating salary or negotiating things to advocate for yourself? Any tips on combating the strong woman stereotype?
Oh, we're saying the lawyer should answer that. Well, my tip is, well, let me say that, first of all, just over the last 4 years, I want to say, I've gotten a lot more women as clients. But I've spent the greater part of my career as an entrepreneur working with men and having to combat exactly that stereotype. And so not appearing to be a bitch because I'm strong and I know how to represent myself, both for my client and for myself. So I've used humor, and sometimes it's that ability to sort of check someone, but make them wonder if they've been checked exactly. You know, I point out, I'm direct, but I try to do it in a way that doesn't necessarily put the person on the defensive. And it's unfortunate that it's left to me to have to do all the backflips, but I've stopped crying about that and I just get it done, so. Anybody else?
That was a good answer.
I can speak to it a little bit. So I studied positive psychology, and there's this theory that I love. It's called the broaden and build theory, but it's basically that when you have positive emotions, you're more creative and you're more resourceful and you're better at creating relationships. And so if you think about, if you're hanging out with your best friends, you're having a great time, and then somebody comes up to you and like something bad happens, let's say, or somebody's kind of rude to you, but you were having a really good time, you'd probably kind of let it slide. You wouldn't care as much. And whereas if you were having a really bad day and somebody cut you off in traffic, we all know what we do and what we say when that happens, right? So I think try to get yourself in that positive mood, and again, research and theories back this up, and before you go to that negotiating table. And you can still be strong and be in a good mood and be positive and try to build relationships. I think, like you were talking about relationships and how powerful that was for your business. I think at the end of the day, we're relational beings. And so if you can get on the same, you talked about being on the same side and like figuring out common ground, bringing in humor, that's a positive emotion. That's super powerful. And so you can know in your head what your ultimate goal is and what you want to achieve, but also think about the other person, have gratitude for them, bring in positive emotion, bring in them as a person, like they're a human being, and get to know them and what they want and try to come up with a common ground where it's a win-win situation. I think that is super powerful, and it can help in negotiation and just in business and life in general. I've been using that theory more recently and having conversations with people, and opportunities just fall in my lap because they like me. And I like know what I want in the back of my head, and then I'm just a nice person to them, and then they're like, oh, would you want to do this? Would you want to speak here or do that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, like that's what's in the back of my head, but I didn't even have to ask because you're just offering it because you like me. So I think likability and positive emotions is really powerful, so leverage that.
So another great quote, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so it's about building that relationship, to open those doors. I'm going to ask Erica a question now. Erica, how did you identify and create opportunities for yourself as an entrepreneur when you were new to the proverbial playing field? You were in a different role. So how did you make that work?
That's right. I was basically on the other side, the other end. But, you know, I think we go back to the whole subject on knowing who you're dealing with, also those relationships that you have. It's very important that you create all of those relationships along the way. Even for you guys as students, while you're in school, I would encourage you to make contacts with anybody outside, whether it's in your school or outside of the school. Anything that you find that might pertain to what you want to do the rest of your life or something that you find interesting. For me, I think my school was actually when I was working on the other end, I made those relationships, and I also, if I didn't know something, I would always go and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to feel like you don't know, because let me tell you, one thing I did learn is even negotiating with men, because when I was going through school, I would go and sit there during the negotiations for contracts. Half of the time, these men didn't know. You know, they would negotiate, and next thing you know, they thought they would get the contract, but a lot of it was based on the relationships that they had, on the knowledge and the homework they had done to land those contracts. So I learned a lot of like the back ends of, you know, how do you negotiate, particularly on my end, like would be with men. But don't let them know that you don't know. Do your research, because half the time, none of us know everything. We don't. It's impossible. So I would say also, you know, nowadays, you guys have such a powerful tool like, you know, social media. You guys are so, you know, it's the whole technology world. I think I can speak for all of us here, we didn't so much have that. So you have other tools to get you engaged and try new things. Don't be afraid to try new avenues of, you know, learning different things. You might be surprised. I wanted to go into something totally different, and I ended up doing landscaping, which I love. It's my passion, but I mean, I never in the world would I imagine that I'd be doing what I do now. So don't be afraid to take a chance.
All right, I'm going to see if there's some questions out there.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn. This question is for Erica. So you mentioned that you started as a receptionist, and I just wanted to know what exactly was the transition from being a receptionist to, you know, having that experience that you mentioned?
That's a great question. Like I mentioned, I applied for a receptionist job, you know, back in the day. I want to say I was either 19 or 20. What happened was I was speaking with one of the project managers that was managing a project, and I said, you know, this sounds really interesting. Is there a chance that I might be able to get more involved? And he says, absolutely. What really, I think, triggered a lot of the interest in them having me be part of that sector in construction is because, as we all know, Latinos make the most of the population of the workforce in that industry, and I was bilingual. So in that office, there was only 2 people that knew Spanish. It was the CPA that worked directly for that company and myself. So that actually transcended into the rest of my work history, because that is how I landed that other position with that other company, based on the fact that I was bilingual. So what they did was they sent me to school. They also had me sit in and I also was, every 6 months, they would rotate me. So I went from every single department. So I learned estimating. From estimating, I was the bid runner. From the bid runner, I was actually doing some purchasing. From purchasing, I went to project engineering and so forth. So that is exactly how I landed into that field, and I found it very interesting. It was challenging. Not that I needed any more challenges in my life, but I loved it, and I stuck with it. So don't be afraid to try new things.
And to follow up on what she said there, she mentioned that she learned all of the departments it took to do the business that she now runs. So think about that, what your business interests are. I've had to do everything in my law practice that someone else, that I would have to ask or hire someone else to do. So the more you know about it, the less somebody, the better you can train, and also not, have somebody shiest you because you know what's going on.
You save money too, the overheads, right?
Is there another question?
Yeah, there is an online question for Erica. You may have partially answered this, but someone online wants to know, if you're a young woman and you're interested in landscaping, it's a male-dominated field. What advice do you have to overcome that challenge?
Whew. Well, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I think that, and I speak for myself, sometimes we don't realize what our capabilities are. We hold ourselves back. So keep going. Like I said, go online, educate yourself, find somebody. Like, for instance, for me, I always tell people, if you are interested in doing landscaping or anything that has to do with that field, I can always help connect them to do internships. Right now I'm actually working with a friend of mine who actually is, she's a teacher at LAUSD, one of the schools out there. So the kids are very interested in gardening. I could not help but say that I would help them because they have no budget, nothing, but they want to know about the world of landscaping, about gardening, about what we're doing to the environment. So what I did was I set aside a couple of weekends. I go out there, I took my crews. We actually donated the irrigation system, the plants, and so we are doing that for the kids nowadays. So it's always about giving back because you never know, if you change one person's life, you've done a great deed, not just for somebody else, but that person more than likely will give back at some point in their life. So I think it goes a long way, more than just being interested in how do you get started. Like I said, you just never know where it's going to take you.
That was a wonderful response. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I just want, like previously mentioned, business is a male-dominated field, so I wanted to ask you all, like being women as well as some of you being a part of the minority group, do you guys think that being a woman and also being a minority group has offered you guys more opportunities, or has it challenged you in a way where people think that you're not capable of doing a man's job, I guess? You won't have the confidence the same way a man does, or the authority the same way a man does, just because you represent something delicate and soft.
Ooh, I can answer that one. I can totally answer that one. Look at me. I'm Asian, minority. What do you think? Oh, this soft-spoken lady. When I raise my voice and speak firmly and confidently, oh, I'm no longer that Asian, right? Traditional Asian where you bow to everybody. So it was difficult for me, right? Like, I think somebody said how to be confident. They'll be calling you names, mean names, right? Why is she like this, right? It's because we're female. We're supposed to be a little bit more soft-spoken, not so confident, right? So yeah, it's a little bit more difficult for somebody like me, I think, to get where I'm at, because their perception is a little bit different. So yeah, so for me, that's how I feel.
I just want to say that it's not easy, but in my perspective, I want to say that at the beginning it was very hard. And it was only difficult because I came to the United States when I was 3 years old. My mother had 10 kids, and she brought 8 of us because the 2 oldest stayed behind in Mexico. And so English was not my first language. I did not learn English until I was probably in the 4th grade, and that was due to a teacher of mine that actually, back in the day, it was okay for them to pick you up. My mother always worked, so she actually took me on the weekends, and she would tutor me, and that is how I learned English. But I was always very scared. I was afraid, growing up. But I realized that life always changes, and like I said, I did everything backwards. I got married, I had kids, and so all of a sudden, life puts you in hot water, and you never know what you're made of, right? You just jump in and you just get it done. And I realized that I had no room to be scared, not to be confident, because I was dealing with all these men, and I was a single mom that had to take care of 4 kids. So I just thought, you know what? There is no room for that. So I just took the plunge and, walked in there, and I would, speak just like everybody else would speak, the same tone, because it's very difficult, just like Justina was saying, when you are very soft-spoken, people tend to say, oh, you know what, she's a pushover, or she doesn't really know. So I think things have changed nowadays. There's more of a playing field for women, but there's still a lot of work to do. But, like I said, don't be afraid.
Be a trailblazer.
Can I add to that?
You certainly may.
Yeah, cool. People were clapping, so I don't know if it was the end. So I think I've used that as fuel to light me up to go harder. And that's what I would recommend for people, because it is hard, but I think you have kind of 2 paths you can take of letting that defeat you and giving up, or you can let it fuel that fire of I'm going to prove you wrong, if they think that or if they underestimate you. And so that's what I've always done. And it might take me a while, but when I have a bad day or I am feeling a little bit down, I try to remember the haters or people like that have underestimated me, and I'm like, I can't give up because I have to prove these people wrong. So use it to fire you up, and it can be a strength instead of a weakness.
Good answer.
I agree with that. And I think I mentioned that I started out with more male clients than female clients. And I think the challenge of it is having to work to prove yourself more than the next guy. So for me, it's always about absolutely knowing what I'm talking about. Because if a guy has to point out to his guy friend lawyer that he kind of messed something up, that's one thing. But if he's got to point it out to a woman, that's going to be why I know I shouldn't have given her the job in the first place, or can't refer her, or whatever. And so, again, that's unfortunate for the backflips, but sometimes that is what you have to do. And I find, what is it Michelle Obama says, when they go low, you go high, but you also go direct sometimes, so.
Okay, so I forgot my watch, so I have no idea how we're doing on time. So when we got 5 minutes, okay, we've got 5 minutes. All right. I think this leads into a question that Rachel, about talking about fear. Were you ever afraid? If so, how did you get the confidence to do things outside of your comfort zone?
I'm afraid all the time. I think you just have to do it scared. And I think confidence comes from taking action. So I've learned in positive psychology and just psychology in general, there's this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy. And basically our thoughts lead to our emotions, which lead to our actions. And so if you have a thought like, oh, I'm scared, then you might have this emotion of like, I don't want to do it, and I'm feeling bad about myself. And they're negative emotions, right? And they can hold you back. You could feel depressed or sad, like you're never going to succeed. And then that could lead to you not taking action. So that's not a good place to be in. We don't want that triangle, that loop going. So the trick is you have to start with, if you feel those emotions, you have to think of what that thought is that caused that and try to shift your thoughts to be more positive. And I learned about positive mindsets and things like this in my past at the Women's Business Center, and sometimes I was like, oh, that's a bunch of woo-woo stuff. And then I studied positive psychology and like research and evidence-based stuff, and I was like, oh, this stuff is real. So I think literally just shifting your thoughts of like, I can do it, as opposed to I can't do it, or I'm good enough. And again, like Google growth mindset, just thinking, I might not know this right now, because you're going to have times when you come across something, you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. And it's okay to be honest with yourself, but you can also say like, I can learn. I'm a smart person. I've figured things out in my past. What have I been successful in? What have I achieved in my past? That wasn't easy. So remind yourself of the good things that you've done. That can get you into some positive thoughts, which can get you into some positive emotions, and then you can have the confidence to take action, even though there's a little bit of doubt and there's a little bit of fear. But as you take more and more action, you're going to get some successes, you'll have some failures, but you'll learn from them, and then things will start landing in your lap. You'll get opportunities, you'll make money. That will lead to a little bit more confidence. Then you can take more risks, and it's baby steps, and you build your confidence as you take action. So that's what I would recommend.
Excellent. Thank you. Keep going. I'm trying to read sign language back there. All right. Okay, this is for Justina. If you could go back, what would you do differently?
Go back in time, huh? So, well, first of all, probably maybe doing my master before I had family. I spent a lot of time. I spent 2 years doing my master right after I already had my family, have a job. So that would be one thing. Do it right after. So do it before you have kids, okay? You're gonna do your master's. For me, I know my kids probably said, Mom, we missed 2 years of vacation. So my daughter's out there in the audience. So, and my husband's probably thinking, yeah, you should have done that because I had to take care of the kids. So yeah, do that while you, before kids. But I did not regret it. But if I would have to do it differently. And the other is find a mentor early on in your career. I did not do that. I wish I would have reached out and looked around me and found somebody like me or had the same, background and value like me, and find a mentor. I blossom later in life, right? So, so I did know, because I was the first to go to college in my family. I have 4 siblings, and none of my brothers or sisters or my mom, my dad, family members, none of us went to college, so I didn't know any better, right? I just went straight ahead and did the best I could. I didn't even know what a mentorship is. So that's what I would have done differently. Find a good mentor, someone that you can talk with, and just to, reached out, and like these women, or anybody, your professors, go to their, to find somebody, even your friends, your family. If you want to be somebody, okay, I want to be a professor. Find a professor. Hey, how do I do that? What steps do I take, right? That's what I would have done, differently, is find a mentor early on, not later on in life where it might be a little bit too late, right? So thank you for that question.
I'm not getting the wrap, so I'm going to keep going. This question is for Margot. How do you handle the stress that can come from business ownership?
So one thing is, I think the perspective of stress being a negative is one thing we have to dispel. It doesn't always have to be a negative. It can kind of propel you, just like we talked about, fear is natural. Sometimes using that to the positive. So, but one thing I think I do is find something that can relieve it, like yoga, hiking with my Rottweilers, that kind of thing. But also recognizing that stress, to me, the feelings, when I have negative feelings about stress, it's because I want the exact moment that I'm in to be something other than what it is. And that's impossible, right? So I found that what I do is I plan on what I can do about those negative feelings, how I can resolve them, whatever that stressful situation is. And then the idea is that once I've written it down, either virtually in my mind or on paper or whatever, if it's work related, then I can follow the plan. And unless worrying is going to actually resolve it, then I'm not understanding why I should do it. So that's kind of how I do it. Exercise and positive thinking and planning.
Questions from the audience? Oh, I see a hand up.
We have two questions at our table. I'm loud, so I don't think I need a mic. But my name's Misty. I'm in the middle of writing a business plan. I'm really, really, really passionate about cooking. Restaurants been a dream since as long as I can remember. My family's on board. But I am a scatterbrained fool. Okay? I have sticky notes, recipes, 85 billion things started. How do I keep going? Because I have all the want in the world, but I have zero organization.
Wow.
Keep going. Keep that passion. Don't stop. Don't stop. Keep going. Like I said, find a mentor. Find somebody that owns a restaurant or already wrote a recipe or already owned that business. Go and speak with them, talk with them, right? And ask them, how did they do it? Right? So that's what would you do. Keep your passion alive. Do not give up on your dreams. If you want to do it, you can do it. You can. Just say you can, right? Like she said, positive talking, whatever you think and your mindset, that's how, it's going to become reality. I know I'm going to see you owning a restaurant in like a couple years, right? Yes. If you need any help, let us know. My husband's here. Our husband and I have, ran a restaurant. So, okay, you can get our numbers afterward. But keep going. You can do it.
I'm glad you have that business plan going. So, once you work that kind of gives you, I tell my clients that when they're doing startups and they say they have an idea that they want to pursue, is even if you're not going to completely fill out the business plan, which you should, but even if you don't, it gives you a really good idea of all the areas you need to be thinking about. You were saying you weren't thinking about marketing, even though in class it was marketing, marketing, marketing. It helps you look at all those areas, right? And then you look at software. One of the things I regret not doing earlier on, I won't say how old I am, is using technology more to my advantage. So software like Notability. It allows you to make notes on things like iPads with the pen, where you can do cursive, your own writing, it can convert it. You can email it to yourself, you can start to organize. So look for software that will help entrepreneurs like yourself, restaurant owners in particular, join a trade association while you're still a student, so it's cheaper. And then with that trade association for restaurant owners, you can start to find a mentor, you can look at the articles they have on the website, those kinds of things will get you going.
I have a book recommendation for you. I just finished it. It's called Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. He has a YouTube channel too, you can check it out. But you need to manage your creative process. You're a creator. And I wish I read that book and learned everything in it when I was a student. Because the knowledge and what you have in your head and all those Post-it notes is gold. And he just gives you a way to manage all that information. And it could take a lifetime, it could take years where you're developing that stuff, and that's fine. And then eventually you just want to have it all come together. And so he basically has a process of pulling all that amazing stuff out of your brain and out of Post-it notes and organizing it in a succinct way so that it's easily accessible, but it doesn't have to just be up here and you forget it and it goes away. But you know exactly where it is, and you can also start combining those ideas. And that's just how the brain works, so it gives you tools to make the process that's going on in your mind a little bit outside of your mind, and it's amazing. So I highly recommend that book for everybody. Okay.
With that being said, I'm getting the wrap it up sign. I do want to let you know that we put on the tables an exercise. It's a worksheet, shall I say, and it's SMART R. And of course, we know what SMART stands for: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. And the R is for reward, so that you accomplish what you say you're going to accomplish, and then you reward yourself. You go on to the next one. So I think that might be a tool that could help all of us. So, all right. I'm going to invite, I believe, don't shake your head. I'm going to invite Victor.
I think it might be better if you have a question or two for the panelists that you can ask them than to So if there is any question.
She's saying, do you have questions? She'd rather we spend
There
the
we go. Can you hear me? So if you have any question, I think the time will be better used, and I already convinced the dean to give up his couple of minutes. So let me just walk around.
Thank you. In a world that's really competitive, my question to all of you is, how do you maintain your confidence as individuals, and not just women alone, but just as people? How do you maintain your confidence in the educational environments and in your employment too?
Such a deep question for such a young woman.
Yes. It's hard to do that, but I think it's human nature. There's days where, and I'm sure these ladies can agree, there's days where we wake up and we say, you know what, today's a great day. We have everything planned out. We feel confident because we're going to go out there, we're going to conquer the world, right? But the reality is that things happen, life happens. As business owners, we don't know, how our day is going to be. We have to do the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's not easy to maintain that confidence. You just keep going. And, there's days where I know for a fact I stress myself out over these projects that I'm working on, thinking, you know what, I'm not going to be able to, get it done on time, or it's a budget thing, or, it could be so many things. And then I realize, okay, take a deep breath. Just, rethink everything, do a little bit of meditation, and, most of the time that will work. Time will take care of everything. And sometimes we worry for things that we shouldn't, just because life happens. But, confidence is not something that comes with a manual. It's just, you just roll with the punches, and you have to stay positive, even when things are bad. Trust me, they will get better, because once you hit rock bottom, you can only go up.
Did anybody?
So I still have the microphone in my hand. I'm coming back on the other side.
I can add to that really fast. Just so you talked about competition, I think it's important to have an abundance mindset, and so you can think about scarcity, and competition is real. There are other people that are trying to do things. There's a lot of people in the world, a lot. And there's a lot of problems in the world, and entrepreneurs and business owners solve those problems. And somebody that you serve, there could be a different type of client, and maybe you even refer certain clients to a different lawyer because that's not your target market. And that's okay, that's collaboration. And so it's about figuring out your niche, what your strengths are, what you're good at, and then you really focus on that. And maybe a competitor will come along and do something better than you, but maybe you just need to figure out a different niche and evolve and grow. And so it's all about a learning process, having a positive mindset, and thinking about opportunities. And yes, sometimes something will happen and you have a bad day and it feels like the world is out to get you, but a little bit of time and, sorry, there's some feedback going on, a little bit of time and having confidence to just keep going. There's so many opportunities out there. And sometimes you pivot, like you were talking about pivoting in your career. it's okay to go back and have a full-time job. Sometimes that can be better for you, for your family. I would not be surprised if you are an entrepreneur later in life again. So there's no right or wrong way to do anything, and you're not a failure or a success because certain things happen in your life. And so I think it's just have a positive attitude, and like we're all just humans running around this earth trying to do the best that we can and learning in the process. So just keep it up and keep going.
I think when Justina, she said a couple of times I did it backwards, and I was thinking about what you said just now, which is there is no right or wrong way to do it. And when you're thinking about, because Justina, you did it how you were to do it for your learning experience and your destiny, right? And so claiming your abundance on a daily is what I have to do. I mean, my confidence wavers different times. It's been 15 years of active entrepreneurship. And trust me, there's some hills and valleys all up and through there. So I think a mantra, about what it is you're claiming can be helpful too, whether you're religious or not, In the morning or with my meditation or on my hike, it's, I like to say true identity, true action. And whatever is happening, who am I and what am I here to do? So.
Okay, well, we are ready for the last question. Oh. Okay, I'm leaving.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Magdalena Zepeda, and I'm in the process of working on a startup technology. My question to you is, and to all of you, is that we have a bunch of students here. We have women like me who have a day job and then entrepreneurs by night trying to get this thing going. And sometimes we just feel like we don't have enough time to get it going. What tips could you give the students and the moms and the business startup people who are out there?
Great. She said delegate.
Delegate. I had one of those days the last 20 days. Life just comes at you, and there is so much going on. Like you were saying that you have a day job and then you're starting to do a startup. I went through a lot of that several years ago, and it is not easy. But just like she said, you delegate. Right? What helped me is I always carry a small pad, and all my thoughts, all my things the priorities go on there. And I know that if I have a million things to do, I have to have at least the first 5 hopefully done. Otherwise, I feel like I accomplished something. Otherwise, you end the day feeling like you didn't do enough. And that's difficult when you're doing 2 things at once. So that's my advice.
I was also in your shoes. I had a full-time job while I was running a small business. I've always worked all the time for the county. And then I set aside time in the evening when I come home and plan my small business, for example. The restaurant, my husband would help me. He'll go in the restaurant and manage a little bit, bring the books home, and I'll do the books for the business, right? So set aside that time. Because during the daytime, I go work full-time. I've always done it. I worked full-time all my life and on the side. And for example, the real estate business, I would do open house on the weekends, right? So find jobs, find a niche to do. Like if you want a small business, do one for the weekend. If you have a full-time job or something, or in the evenings, allocate that time to do it. And like you said, you have a planner, or set a time. You have to be a little bit more organized because there's so much happening in the other job already, right? I was working full time, and then we're like, okay, we're running a business. Then I'm going back to school, getting my master's, and I'm raising my 2 kids, right? So I'm juggling like 10 different things. So I'm like, okay, where do I go now? So you just have to take one step at a time. What is the most important to you, right? So I had to give up something when I had my family. I gave up the restaurant. And then later on, I said, okay, I can't do weekends anymore. I had to give up my real estate license because I had to spend time with my kids. So you just have to, prioritize what's important to you, right? So that's would be my advice.
Okay, well,
I think we're back to technology also, using that to balance your time. The series of the world, being able to set up your task list so that you're not, I have to keep 2 different calendars, and I use the tasks within those systems for my practice management to remind me of things. And so those reminders, and if you have a partner in life, again, and for students, I can't say enough, man, woman, or child, that you make sure you have those early discussions with the person in your life about what your business goals are and how you're going to split that. So.
Can I add one more thing? So delegation, everything they said, I would just echo. It's amazing. You need to get good at time management. Watch YouTube videos or something. Figure that out. That's a foundational skill that will take you through life. But a new thing that's coming up is automation. So you can automate a lot of things. There are no-code tools. There's things like Airtable. There's even just using your phone. I was making an Instagram reel this morning that if you want to follow me on Instagram, you'll get the tip tomorrow or within a couple of days. But you can literally use your phone and create shortcuts to where instead of, for example, if you are married and you always text your husband, what do you want for dinner tonight? Instead of texting that whole phrase, you can literally have the short code be a W, and then when you type that in, that whole sentence will come up. And it might seem like milliseconds, but if you do that every single day for years, you're probably saving some hours of your life. And so you can get a little crazy with it, but seriously, how can you save a couple minutes of your life every single day? And that's how you'll start to get some time back. So don't sleep on the fact that some amazing technologies are coming out that allow you to automate.
I think you should all grow the business so much that you delegate who makes that decision for you and they fix it for you, because that is the hardest question of the day, every day. Just joking. All right.
okay. Well, I want to thank you very, very much, the expert. Please join me. Because clearly, time, right? I mean, everybody is incredibly busy. So we are very fortunate that they accept to just come and share with us, right, some of the tips that explain their success. That is wonderful. Now, in terms of cooking, I choose a husband that cooks. Just kidding. But just kidding. But so thank you. Michelle, if you could please just quickly do the raffle, and so we're out of here. So did you put your name on the sheet that you were asked to? Yes, you did. Wonderful. You did? Okay, everybody did? Because there is like a lot of money. You did? Okay, thank you. Can we have this?
So the number I have chosen is 58. Oh, there's one.
Who has number 58?
Oh, we have a winner.
Karen, but isn't that the panelist? Karen Gutierrez.
Karen Gutierrez.
Yeah! So we have a gift for you, Karen. The dean has the gift. What? Are those my flowers?
And I'd like to challenge everybody before you leave, meet someone new, because that's what you're here for. Remember that network or not work. Broaden your horizon. We have some amazing ladies up here for you to talk to, but also meet someone new before you go today.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, ladies. Thank you to the audience, all the wonderful students. Thank you for the team. We could not have done this without a technical team, right? That does a fabulous job. So thank you, Jim Trotter's teams and Finn and everybody there. I want to say good night to, when I checked, there is probably, 90 people that were still online. So good night to everybody that is still online, and I hope that you enjoyed this event, because we did. We were so happy to put it together for you. You calling me? Okay.
So as a special thank you for all you do, and you should be up here doing this, but I will do it for you. Please come up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate that very, very much.
Have a great evening. You cannot leave until the food is gone. I'm just joking. But please enjoy, connect, and we so appreciate you being here in person and online, and we look forward to seeing you next year at the next ShEconomy. Thank you.
Remember, we have a little gift for you. There is a little gift bag, black bag. Thank you, Marina, for putting this together. Thank you, Aparna. Thank you, Ashwin, for all the time and the energy. Appreciate that very, very much.